Hello, everybody. Jonathan Pulley here with West Coast Weather. Today is January 11th. We got a ridge of high pressure building out over the Pacific Ocean right now. This is going to keep us in a pretty dry pattern for the next week or so as a kind of a stubborn omega block sets up. That's basically where you get low pressure on one side of a ridge and then another low pressure on the other side of the ridge. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but that's basically the type of pattern that we're going to be having. These patterns can kind of get locked in for a week or even more than that. So we're gonna have to see how long this omega block is gonna last. But man, the California fires down there in Los Angeles has been pretty crazy the last few days. I've been keeping an eye on it a lot. It looks like we're gonna keep up the winds and stuff, unfortunately, in the dry weather for at least through next week. So unfortunately, those fire crews down there are going to be having to deal with some gusty winds, especially for the Palisades fire down there in Los Angeles. So my heart goes out to all the people that have been affected by that. But I also see the potential for some Arctic air to try to clip some of the Pacific Northwest as we go through around January 18th to the 20th. Right now, models have kind of downtreaded, and most of that cold air is going to go east of the Rockies. But it's going to get us pretty chilly, especially during the nighttime as well. And things can and will change because that's still over a week out as well. So anyways, let's get right into the forecast here. As I showed you here, this ridge is starting to build in, creating a drier weather pattern after we had a weak front move through the Pacific Northwest the other day. You can see a little bit of a low pressure system kind of move down. We're going to be on the chilly side of this ridge because it's going to bring that northern flow down over us from the north and northeast, but the actual Arctic air though is going to go way far to the east. And so we'll keep this ridge going. Look at it, retrogrades. Now it's like right over the Pacific Northwest. Then this trough starts moving in around the 16th. This will start ushering in a colder pattern as it pushes this ridge farther out over the Pacific, over the Gulf of Alaska. And it starts bringing some Arctic air that come down in the BC. But look at how it only clips us on the Pacific Northwest. This is only going to bring some pretty chilly weather and some outflow in the easterly gap winds. That'll bring some cold air into the lowlands of Washington, western Oregon. However, if you wanted a really good shot of Arctic air with a full on blast with potential for snow, you'd want this ridge more over here around the Aleutian, at the beginning of the Aleutian Islands. This would allow that trough in Arctic air to come right over the ocean, bring that cold air over the ocean can cause cyclogenesis to form. You get a low pressure system off the coast, bringing in moisture, colliding with the cold air and getting snow. We do not see this happening with at least this first lobe of cold air. Some models hint, if I play this out a little longer, this ridge kind of falls in, but there's models are all switching around on this next ridge. Is it going to set up over us, or is it going to set up to the east and allow that cold air to finally get over us? We're also now officially in La Niña, which means that we're likely to start favoring some more active and cooler and wetter weather as we go into late January into February as well. I'm thinking February is going to have our best shot of really cold air and potential for snow. We can't really get into any details with that, but it's looking that way with some of the long-range models. Now looking at the 6-hour precipitation type, here's the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, British Columbia up here. Generally some isolated showers continuing in some of the Cascades of Western Washington and Oregon. But generally shouldn't be that much of an issue. Maybe a couple more showers as that little low pressure system moves down for mostly some of the mountains, maybe parts of the Willamette Valley. Keeping us dry and rather chilly. There's also going to be fog most mornings and low clouds as well, which I'll show you here in a moment. We continue all the way through next week. This is now Thursday, but then you can look at some precipitation starting to make its way. This is that low pressure system that's going to move into BC, bring some snow to the interior BC in the mountains. Then that cold air will kind of drop down. Look at this. You can see up here, look at this is the 1055 millibar high pressure system that is associated with dense Arctic air. But look, it's on the east side of the Rocky Mountains. So most of that cold air is going to flow to the east instead of coming down over us. But it will likely keep us pretty chilly as you see these gradient, the pressure, the isobars. This is a pretty strong pressure gradient over the North Shore mountains of BC. This will allow some very modified Arctic air to come into the Fraser River Valley and come over Washington and Oregon. with lows in the 20s and stuff, but it's not looking too impressive. And we look to stay dry, but look at California. Southern California is getting nothing this entire time period, unfortunately. So the fires are the fire weather is gonna stay active for a pretty long time, unfortunately. And it looks like I had duplicated maps here. Now looking at temperature anomaly, this is temperatures in Fahrenheit. This is how much it's going to be below average. This is not actual temperature. And you can see the Arctic area is going to start moving to BC and Alberta around the 18th and 19th. And you can see all these greens and stuff starting to flow. And look how Eastern Washington's starting to get those purples as well. But look at the main mass of the cold air with temperatures potentially 40 to 50 degrees below average. So likely plenty of negatives. Montana's going to sink into the ice box during this time frame. We're also going to get pretty chilly as well. I'll show you the actual temperatures here in a moment. You can see this below average air continues, but look, it starts warming up as that Arctic air only lasts for a couple days, and it directly moves east in the eastern US. And if we continue out, it looks like that the European model this morning is bringing that ridge right over us, but last night it showed another potential for Arctic air also around this time frame. So the models are flip-flopping like crazy, so there's no point in going past 10 days right now. Sometimes you can get a general idea, but right now the models are all over the place. Now looking at 2-meter temperatures, this is as we're going into the 18th and stuff. Like you can see these are all negative temperatures. Look at these. Some of these areas in the mountains of Montana getting down into the negative 30s and 40s. Some of the valleys getting into the negative teens and potentially negative 20 degrees as well. So it's going to be very cold out there. And you can see Eastern Washington getting down into Spokane, getting into the low teens, potential single digits as well. Most of Eastern Washington in the freezer as well. You can even see Willamette Valley, the Puget Sound also getting into the middle, the upper 20s. So definitely the coldest air of the season is going to be making its way through. However, it's going to be mostly going east, so we're not going to be getting a ton of cold air. You can see even California getting into the 20s and 30s as well for some of the Sacramento Valley and the mountains as well. So some freezing temperatures for places out east. And now looking at visibility in miles, you can see this is looking at fog. So the dark gray areas is really low visibility, while the white is super clear. So you can see at max, you can see 52 miles into the distance. That's perfectly clear. But then you can see the minimum is 0.06 miles. That would be like super dense fog. So we'll see as we go through tomorrow, Sunday morning, you can see some low clouds showing it. This isn't a very good fog signature. But as we go into Monday, however, look at how it's mostly over the Puget Sound and parts of the Willamette Valley, because some of the valleys and the Puget Sound kind of have a lot higher moisture content. So that allows for that fog to form. And you can see that Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, even more dense. Very weak system moves in on Thursday, potentially, maybe getting rid of some of that fog, but there's going to be morning low clouds and stuff. So there's going to be fog and morning low clouds likely. Thankfully, they'll clear up in the afternoon for most locations. Now looking at all 50 different ensemble members on the European model, basically each one of these we're basically tweaking the initial conditions of the atmosphere slightly to get an array of different solutions. This kind of helps us account for different errors that may occur. And then down here's the control run. That's basically the main weather model of the year, the main European model that basically takes our conditions as best as we can analyze it from all the data we're taking from weather balloons, from buoys in the ocean and stuff. So typically that one's the most correct one, but some of these other ones can also be right as well. So we can take the average, the mean of all 50 of these, and we can get a generalized idea of what we're going to be expecting. So that's that green line right here. So you can see generally going to be kind of chilly with that ridge. Some temperatures getting towards freezing for a lot of areas. Highs in the 40s though. But then look at as we go towards that 18th, the 20th time frame, you can see lows are starting to get into the 20s now, even on the mean. So the average, usually the average is not you don't want to take it for verbatim because it's taking in the average of warmer models and colder models. So it will likely be warmer or colder. And I'm leaning on the colder side of things. And you can see that we start dipping down. Then the European model this morning warms things up again, but you can see the control run is a lot warmer than the average. So a lot of the different models are keeping us on the chillier side compared to the control run. So the basic European model we were looking at earlier is kind of on the high end of things, so that's not as likely to occur as what some of the other model members say. Kind of complicated, but you get the gist of it. Now taking a look at Southern California on the NAM3 cam, the North American model. This is wind gusts in miles per hour at 10 meters. So this is surface wind gusts. You can see as we go through later this afternoon and evening, look at the winds start picking up with the gusts potentially up towards 50, 60 miles per hour for the mountains. The Palisades fire is also going to start blowing again with gusts over 40 miles per hour potentially. That's going to cause issues for firefighters. Thankfully, winds start to calm down on Sunday again, but it's not going to just Sunday, and then look at Monday, it starts to pick up again, starts dying down, but on Tuesday, the winds are going to get potentially even stronger than later tonight as well. Not as bad as last week, but it's also going to be keeping that dry air flowing from the desert regions over the Los Angeles, and unfortunately keeping that fire danger up all the way through next week. Now looking at relative humidity, you can see relative humidities for a lot of the Los Angeles area continuing to be in the 20s, the teens, even some single digits in the mountains at times. But look at this really dry air on Monday with almost all of the Los Angeles area with humidity only 12, 13%, 14%. So very dry air expected as those easterly winds continue going on. So hopefully the firefighters can really get a hold on the last little bit of the fires that are going. Now look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. January 16th to 20th, that's when our cold air starts coming in. You can see the blue is bullseyeing Montana and Idaho, where we really saw those really cold temperatures. Also, most of the West Coast leaning towards that. However, we look to continue to remain pretty dry through this period, as that ridge of high pressure is too close to our area to get much moisture coming in with these low pressure systems that clip us. January 18th to 24th, the cold air shifts east, as I was showing you earlier, favoring the northern and central U.S. But however, much of the U.S. is looking to remain below average, as that cold Arctic air kind of has an influence basically everywhere. Precipitation, you can see most of that moisture is going to go into the Rockies and stuff, with the main low pressure in the southeast United States, potential for more snowstorms out east. So those snow lovers out there are going to continue enjoying this pattern. However, will continue to be below average on the West Coast. Now showing you the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. This is for January 25th to February 7th. This is more of an experimental forecast. You can see they're favoring us. They're favoring us with a 60 to 70% chance of above average precipitation during this time frame, around near normal to above average for a lot of the West Coast. But I want to take you down here where I have this highlight. It says in weeks 3, the negative height anomaly, so basically the trough of low pressure, will stretch deeper into the northern plains of the U.S., which is where that colder weather is continuing to be expected up here. But it will retract and shift towards Western Canada in week 4. The pattern overall projects onto a more La Niña-like signature during week 4. So as we get into the last week of January and the first week of February, forecasters and the models are starting to have an idea that we look to start shifting toward a more La Niña-like weather and pattern, which would favor above average precipitation and below average temperatures for us in the Pacific Northwest. That will open up the door for a potentially more active pattern. This is still a long ways out. We got a couple weeks to look at this, but generally this is a very good look if you're wanting colder weather, potential for snow as well. So I'll continue to look at that as we go, but for now, I hope everybody's having a great day and is having a great weekend so far. I'll have another video out in a few days to go over all this stuff again to see if that the earlier Arctic air that looks to move in around the 18th to 20th starts shifting a little closer to us, because it's still about 7 days away, so a lot of things can change by then. So anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Take care, God bless, and I'll talk to everybody in the next forecast video.